amazing quality does not come from the tools we use, but how we use them. It's about taking a few basic ingredients and putting them together just right to highlight what truly matters. I have been long searching for a vocal chain that gives me the magic I hear from global hit records played on the radio and across streaming platforms. You know what I mean. Present but not aggressive, bright but not sibilant, warm but not dull. Oh, and it must be reliable and affordable. When it comes to microphones, there is a world of options. Dynamic, ribbon, condenser, cardioid or figure of 8 patterns, a fixed polar pattern, a variable polar pattern, tube powered, solid state powered, passive. There is a world of choice. And with such a huge array to pick from, I had to narrow my search. So, with the goal of finding the perfect pop vocal radio sound in the forefront of my mind, I put all of my focus to the music industry workhorse microphones. And that whittled down our options considerably, leaving just the classics. The Neumann U87, U67 and 47, Telefunken 251, the AKG C12, and more modern options such as the Sony C800G and the Manley reference cardioid. But upon further research, it seemed that none of these were going to work. They were all way out of budget. That's when I had a thought. What about the not-so-secret weapon? The microphone that sits in every writing session. The mic that everyone has used. It's reliable, it's affordable, and it's a mic that I already own. The Shure SM7B. Having been in continuous production in various forms over the last 50 years, the SM7B has found its way onto some of the biggest songs in history. Most famously, Michael Jackson's Thriller, and more recently, Ed Sheeran's Shivers. The chances are you've heard it on so many records that you wouldn't believe. If there's a moment of inspiration, this is the microphone that I would almost guarantee to be already set up in the room and ready to capture it. But what about the rest of the chain? I spent the following few hours digging through the internet for every nugget of information that I could find. With sources such as Mix with the Masters, Gearspace, and YouTube, I was able to put together the actual plugin chains from the likes of Sam Smith, Justin Bieber, Rihanna, and hit-making producers like Max Martin, Stargate, and Louis Bell, to name but a few. There were commonalities everywhere, from the plugins that everyone used to the processing order that engineers and producers implement. And so we can break down the standard vocal chain into a number of parts. First, the input stage, which includes the microphone, preamp, and some light compression. As we've previously discussed, there are only a handful of vocal microphones that are predominantly used, and coincidentally, the same applies to preamps, with the class favorite being the Neve 1073, occasionally the 1081, or if you've ever worked with Max Martin, the Chandler TG2. And when it comes to compression, the same holds true. We have a choice of three: the TubeTech CL1B, the 1176, or the LA2A. The only caveat that I've found, which seems to be becoming increasingly more common as artists and producers value creativity above all else, is bypassing the external preamp and compressor entirely and running directly into an interface preamp such as the widely adopted Universal Audio Apollo. But, this aside, the only real variations start happening as we follow the audio into the computer. Auto-tune and corrective EQ come first, followed by a basic leveling compressor. From there, we have a plethora of devices, like saturation from Black Box, Spectra, or high-frequency enhancement with a Pultec EQ, the Airband on a Moog, or exciters like Fresh Air. Then, almost certainly last in the chain, comes the taming of harsh frequencies, whether this be achieved simply by using a de-esser or dynamic resonance suppressors like Soothe that are becoming widely adopted as standard practice. Right when I thought I was making headway and getting to a solid conclusion, I remembered two incredibly talented brothers out of the UK that go by the name of Disclosure. They made their first album almost exclusively with stock Logic plugins, and yet they gained nominations for 4 BRIT Awards, 2 Grammys, 8 International Dance Music Awards, 1 Ivor Novello, 3 Mobos, and helped break the careers of international superstars like Sam Smith along the way. And now, even 10 years after its release, I listen to their debut album Settle, and it breathes nothing less than perfection. At this point, I had to admit to the fact that the more research I did, the more I realized that I was on an endless path, walking further and further from the truth. £10,000 microphones, Neve preamps, AI-powered plugins, and vintage hardware are all great, but these factors are only responsible for maybe 10 or 20% of the sound. The overwhelming factor is you. You as the singer, you as the producer, you as the engineer, you hold all the power, and you create the magic. It's now that I'm reminded of something that I read from Dave Pansato some time back. We all have the same gear, but we all sound different. The most important quality to have is the will to make a great record. Then, the realization will follow. And so, back to where we began. Amazing quality does not come from the tools we use, but how we use them. When we delve into an endless and ever-growing amount of choice, we will only ever be paralyzed. So use what you have. Empower yourself through experimentation, education, and creativity. I'll start off by leaving all the plugin chains that I've discovered on my journey in the description below, so that you can continue on your own path. But never forget, you hold the power to create your own success.